is an at-will employee?
An at-will employment means by the U.S. labor laws that is a contractual relationship with another entity, the travel nursing agency, that you can be dismissed for any reason. They don't have to have a good reason. They can have a bad reason. They can just not like you for some reason or personality conflicts. I really believe that at the hospitals, that is what causes a lot of people to get terminated. Is just the fact that you don't get along with your immediate supervisor or somebody that you're working with on the floor. So what this also means is that when you are hired at will, then the courts deny the employee any claim for loss resulting from that dismissal. So if you get dismissed from your contract, then you can't go back and sue that company for, how much ever money it took you to get to your assignment and all the miles and all the hours you had spent getting to that assignment.
What is a con- what is a contracted employee?
A contracted employee, by definition, is someone who is employed by a contract where two parties, the employee and the employer, or the travel health care provider and the agency, have a contract stating that you're going to work at this place for so long and you're going to work for this shift. So that is a contracted employee. A very important part of this is also the fact that it is a meeting between the two minds. So if your travel agency thinks one thing, but you don't think the same thing, then there's no meeting of the minds. Therefore, there is no contract.
What is a contracted at-will employee?
So let's put this all together. What is a contracted at-will employee? Well, that's what we are. So yes, we do have a contract that states our stipulations that we're going to work on certain units, we're going to work at certain times, certain facilities. You have all of that in the contract, what the company's going to do for you, what you are going to do for the company.
What are implied contracts?
So implied employee contracts are most often found when the personnel policies or handbook indicate that an employee will not be fired except for good cause, and they have a specific process for firing. Now, this is in effect for some companies, but there are very few of those out there that it's just you're a contracted employee and the at will clause is not in there. These are running a little short now, so most of the time you're going to find the at will employees. But on the other hand, I have noticed that agencies really don't want to fire you, or terminate you, or whatever word you want to use. They want to keep you around so that they don't have to train anybody on their processes and procedures. So if the employer does fire an employee in violation of the implied employment contract, then the employer can be liable for breach of contract. Also, with the hospitals, if you have certain stipulations in your contract and they do not, and you've discussed them with the manager, it's very important that you need to discuss them with the manager. But if you have things in your contract and the hospital does not follow them, even after you have shown them your contract and say, hey, this is the deal we made, and I talked with Mary Wadley on the manager, and Mary said that I would have no more than 6 patients. Why are you trying to give me the 7th admit? You can go through that. You do have a leg. It gives you more power from the traveler side, but hopefully it works, and it has worked for me. But sometimes they may give you an ultimatum also of, well, that's not going to how it's going to be, and you're going to have to take the 7th patient, or the facility will terminate you if you don't take that patient. I've had this happen as a supervisor. We had an ICU nurse that absolutely refused to go to the telemetry floor and have 4 patients. So we just told her, I was informed by my boss to tell her to go home and to come back and talk to the manager in the morning. And of course, they terminated her contract. So, the thing is about travel nursing is we do have contracts. Contracts can be broken by either side, but that contract is also there to give you help.
What are some of the statutory exceptions?
I also wanted to take a look and see what were some of the statutory exceptions. What are the reasons that an employer can't terminate your contract when you're an at-will employee? So if your recruiter asks you to get him some Lortab, and you say, no, I can't do that, there's no way. Or if you're working in Washington and they want you to send them a little bit of that stuff that's grown for medicinal purposes, you can't do that. On the other hand, they can't fire you because you won't do that for them. They can't fire you for medical and family leave. Now, this is a little bit different with travelers. We don't have FMLA. And if you have to be gone for like a week, usually things can be worked out, but they can't fire you just because you need to take a day off because of family. And in relation to the employee protection agencies, including suing for wrongful termination, wrongful termination lawsuits aren't really popular out there. I haven't heard of very many of them, but they do happen. So I just wanted you to be aware that that they can happen. In fact, one did happen, Ross versus Vanguard, in which Ross successfully sued his employer due to an allegation of racial discrimination. They can't fire you for racial discrimination or sexual or gender or any of those other for being old, thank God. So, all right.
What about my employment relationship?
Your employment relationship. There are many instances wherein the employee relationship affords no expectations predictable by law. The employment will continue until those conditions, certain conditions, have not been met. So as long as you go to your assignment and do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do, then you are protected by that contract. Again, an employer may terminate its employees at will for any or no reason, but the employee may act preemptively and arbitrarily or inconsistently without providing specific protections such as a fair warning, fair procedures, and objective evaluation or preferential assignment selection. This is one of the reasons why it's very important that you talk to your recruiter anytime any little thing goes wrong. Even if I get into a little argument with another nurse, or I do something that maybe somebody else wasn't too happy with. Anytime anything little goes on, I always let my recruiter know so that you are protecting that employer relationship. Usually most companies, they don't want you to be terminated either. So if they hear from the hospital, they will talk to you about it. A lot of hospitals, the manager will talk to you about it themselves in the office, and that's great. But I just wanted to let you know that, that your employment relationship with your hospital and your agency, you need to work at those relationships, and really it's do unto others as you would want them to do to you. And if you don't mix with a recruiter or a company, then it's 13 weeks and you change. So that's the good thing about our profession, is that change is good at times. So just be aware of the employer and employee relationship.
Can the agency change the contract rules at any time?
Not without your consent. Remember, a contract is a meeting of the minds, okay? You've just said that this contract is okay. The hospital has said this contract is okay. You may have to do some negotiations at the first, but once you sign that contract, then you need to live by the rules of that contract. If something does come up during those 13 weeks, then usually you can talk to the agency and the hospital if you have an emergency come up, and things can be worked out. Usually you can add weeks to the end of the contract. One other thing I want for you to be aware of is the employee handbook. Instead of having a 20-page long contract, now they will put in there, see employee handbook. So whenever you are hired for a new company, make sure that they send you a copy of that employee handbook. Do not sign down there or check the box that I've received a copy of that handbook if you have not received the copy of that handbook, because you are responsible for what is in that handbook. So I hope this helps you understand contracts a little bit more. See y'all next week.